On July 20th, 1973, Bruce Lee died tragically at the age of 32. The official cause of death, a fatal reaction to aspirin.
Bruce Lee was young, strong, and at the height of his fame when he suddenly died at just 32 years old. The world was shocked, and for decades people have asked the same question: how could someone so fit and disciplined collapse without warning? The official story left more questions than answers, and over the years, new theories have only deepened the mystery. Join us as we uncover the Bruce Lee death mystery that's finally been solved. The early roots of a legend. Bruce Lee's story began far from the bustling streets of Hong Kong, where he would one day rise to fame. He was born on November 27, 1940, in San Francisco's Chinatown, while his parents were touring the United States with a Cantonese opera company. His arrival came at a special time, both according to the calendar and to Chinese tradition. Bruce was born in the Year of the Dragon, and not only that, but also during the Hour of the Dragon as well. Only a few months after his birth, the Lee family returned to Hong Kong in April 1941. What seemed like a simple move home soon turned into years of hardship. By the end of that year, Japan invaded Hong Kong during World War II. The city fell under occupation, and life became extremely difficult. Bruce's early childhood was spent in a world filled with constant danger, food shortages, and violence in the streets. Families struggled daily just to survive. For young Bruce, this was a time of fear, but also of resilience. While many children had carefree childhoods, Bruce grew up learning how to endure hardship and protect himself in an unstable world. These years left a lasting mark on his character, giving him a toughness that would show throughout his life. Even while living in such difficult conditions, Bruce was introduced to the entertainment world at a very young age. His father, Lee Hoi-chun, was a well-known Cantonese opera performer and had connections in the film industry. Bruce's first appearance came as a baby in the movie Golden Gate Girl, filmed during his family's stay in the U.S. As he grew older, his natural charm and ability in front of the camera became clear. At just 9 years old, he starred in the movie The Kid, which was based on a popular local comic book character. Acting became a part of his daily life, and before he turned 18 years old, Bruce had already appeared in over 20 films. While most teenagers were still thinking about their futures, Bruce had already built a career and gained years of on-set experience. But fame did not shield him from problems at home. In the early 1950s, his father fell into opium addiction, which caused emotional and financial struggles for the family. At the same time, Bruce was dealing with trouble in school. He first attended Tak Sun School, but was known for being restless, rebellious, and unwilling to follow strict rules. His behavior led him to transfer to St. Francis Xavier's College in 1956, but his issues continued. Bright and energetic, Bruce often found himself clashing with authority figures and getting into fights on the streets of Hong Kong. These brushes with trouble made his family worry about his future, but they also pushed him toward the path that would later define him: martial arts. The making of a martial artist. By the time Bruce Lee was a teenager, his life was already filled with energy, restlessness, and conflict. At 13 years old, he was introduced to the man who would become one of the most important figures in his development, Ip Man, the legendary master of Wing Chun Kung Fu. A friend, William Chung, suggested that Bruce try martial arts to help give him structure and discipline, since Bruce was often getting into street fights. When Bruce first applied to join Ip Man's school, he was turned away. The rejection had nothing to do with his skills, but with his background. Bruce's mother, Grace Ho, was of mixed Chinese and European descent. At that time, many martial arts schools in Hong Kong had strict traditions. They believed Kung Fu should only be taught to students of full Chinese heritage. To them, Bruce was seen as an outsider. Luckily, William Chung spoke up for him, and Ip Man eventually allowed Bruce to train. Still, not everyone accepted him. Some students refused to spar with him because of his mixed race. This did not stop Bruce. From the very beginning, he threw himself into training with incredible dedication. He practiced constantly, repeating movements for hours and pushing himself far beyond what others did. Even though he often faced cold treatment from peers, Bruce stayed focused. For him, martial arts was more than exercise. It became an obsession. He admired Ip Man not just for his skill, but also for his wisdom, and over time, Bruce began to build the foundation for his own fighting style. But his passion for martial arts didn't stop Bruce from getting into trouble outside the school. In the late 1950s, Hong Kong was known for rooftop fights between students of rival martial arts schools. Bruce was no stranger to these battles. In 1958, he fought against students from the Choi Li Foot School during one of these confrontations. During the fight, Bruce struck an opponent so hard that he knocked out one of the boy's teeth. The injured student's family went to the police, and the situation became very serious. Bruce's mother had to step in to take responsibility. She did not tell Bruce's father about the incident, but she made a decision. She feared her son would either end up in jail or attract dangerous enemies. To protect him, she chose to send Bruce back to the United States, the country where he was born. Before leaving Hong Kong, Bruce showed the world that he was not just a fighter, but also a gifted, all-around athlete. That same year, 1958, he entered the Hong Kong Inter-School Boxing Championship. Facing the defending champion Gary Elms, Bruce proved his speed and strength by knocking him out in the final round. By the time Bruce boarded a ship for America at 18 years old, he had already built a reputation in Hong Kong as a fighter, athlete, and performer. But his true journey was only just beginning. From waiter to warrior. When Bruce Lee arrived in San Francisco in 1959, he was just 18 years old. His parents had sent him away from Hong Kong after his growing street fights and clashes with the law. At first, he stayed with his older sister Agnes, but soon he made his way to Seattle, Washington, where his real journey of reinvention began. In Seattle, Bruce lived and worked in the home and restaurant of Ruby Chow, a family friend. He worked as a live-in waiter, helping at the restaurant while finishing his studies at Edison Technical School to complete his high school education. Life in America was not glamorous. He had little money and worked long hours, but he never stopped thinking about martial arts. Even in these early days, he carried with him the techniques and discipline he had learned in Hong Kong under Ip Man. It wasn't long before Bruce began sharing his knowledge with others. His first student in America was Jesse Glover, an African-American judo practitioner who was impressed by Bruce's speed and technique. From that first lesson, Bruce's student base began to grow. He named his style Junfan Gung Fu, after his Chinese name, Li Junfan. Unlike many traditional martial arts schools at the time, Bruce did not limit who could train with him. He accepted students from all backgrounds, Black, White, Asian, and Latino. In the early 1960s, this openness was rare, especially in martial arts communities that often held on to cultural and racial boundaries. Bruce broke those barriers, showing that martial arts could belong to everyone, not just a select group. By 1961, Bruce enrolled at the University of Washington. He officially studied drama, but he often said it was philosophy that influenced him the most. He read widely, both Eastern and Western works, searching for ideas that could apply not only to life, but also to martial arts. Philosophy gave him a way to think deeper about fighting, freedom, and self-expression. Despite his poverty, Bruce carried himself with confidence and energy that drew people in. He rented small rooms, washed dishes to make money, and kept teaching martial arts on the side. His charisma and passion helped him form friendships with people from many walks of life, some of whom would support his career later. A major turning point came in 1964 when Bruce was invited to perform at the Long Beach International Karate Championships in California. This was one of the biggest martial arts events in the United States, and Bruce saw it as a chance to show what made his style different. On stage, he amazed the crowd with his physical feats. He demonstrated two-finger push-ups, balancing his body weight on only his thumb and index finger. He also performed his famous one-inch punch, a short, explosive strike that sent an opponent flying back with barely any effort. The audience was stunned by his speed, power, and control. And soon one fight in particular would test everything he believed about martial arts: the secret showdown. By the early 1960s, Bruce Lee's way of teaching was upsetting some people in the Chinese martial arts community. In his schools, he welcomed students of all races. He believed skill, effort, and attitude mattered more than a person's background. This went against old rules held by some elders who felt Chinese martial arts should be taught only to Chinese students. As Bruce's popularity grew, the complaints grew louder. Community leaders in San Francisco were said to be especially unhappy. They wanted him to stop teaching non-Chinese students. Bruce refused. He felt gatekeeping was wrong and that martial arts should be open to anyone willing to train. Tension rose until a challenge was issued to settle the matter with a fight. The match took place in 1964 at Bruce's school in Oakland, California. There were no cameras and only a few witnesses, so what happened that day became a story with several versions. Each version agrees that Bruce faced Wong Jack Man, a skilled young martial artist who had recently arrived from Hong Kong. Everything else depends on who you ask. According to Linda Lee, Bruce's wife, the fight was short and one-sided. She said Bruce attacked quickly and pressed Wong without pause. In her account, Wong could not handle Bruce's speed and pressure, and the fight ended in about 3 minutes with Bruce the clear winner. Linda also said Bruce was angry afterward, not because he lost, but because he believed the fight took longer than it should have. He felt his form was not efficient enough and that he had wasted energy. Another witness, William Chen, remembered it very differently. He said the match lasted around 20 to 25 minutes and did not have a clear winner. In his telling, Bruce could not land solid finishing blows, and Wong avoided or softened some of his stronger kicks. Chen described the fight as messy and tiring for both men, with no decisive end. Wong Jack Man also gave his own version. He claimed that Bruce started the fight by pretending to offer a handshake and then suddenly attacking. Wong said Bruce charged like a mad bull, using wild and dangerous moves that were meant to harm rather than test skill. He said he held back because he did not want to injure Bruce seriously. According to Wong, the match stopped not because he gave up, but because Bruce became too tired to continue. After the fight, the disagreement moved to the press. Wong later printed a public challenge for a rematch in a San Francisco newspaper, saying he wanted to clear his name. Bruce did not answer the challenge, and there was never a second fight. The lack of a rematch kept the mystery alive. People picked the version they believed and argued about it for years. Next, the spotlight gets brighter as Bruce returns to Hong Kong and pushes himself even harder on and off the set. Fame and pressure in Hong Kong. By the early 1970s, Bruce Lee was no longer just a martial arts teacher or a promising actor. He had returned to Hong Kong and quickly risen to international stardom. His first major film, The Big Boss, turned him into a household name across Asia. Audiences were drawn to his raw energy, speed, and the way he portrayed characters who fought back against injustice. The film broke records in Hong Kong, proving that Bruce had something new to offer the screen. Not long after, he starred in Fist of Fury, where his performance reached another level. The film's themes of resistance and pride struck a chord with Chinese audiences, and once again, Bruce was at the center of a cultural wave. His charisma, combined with his unique fighting style, made him a symbol of strength for millions. With Way of the Dragon, Bruce went further by taking control behind the camera. He wrote, directed, and starred in the film, showing not only his fighting ability but also his vision as a filmmaker. The movie's final showdown in Rome's Colosseum against Chuck Norris became one of the most famous fight scenes in cinema history. By the time filming began for Enter the Dragon in 1973, Bruce was no longer just a star in Asia. He was becoming a global phenomenon. This movie was a joint project between Hong Kong and Hollywood, meant to introduce Bruce to Western audiences in a major way. He trained relentlessly for the role, pushing himself harder than ever. His workouts were legendary, involving hours of practice every day, often until exhaustion. His preparation for each scene was not only physical but also mental, as he wanted to deliver a performance that would set a new standard for martial arts films. Bruce also made a decision that would later raise concern among doctors. In 1972, he underwent surgery to remove the sweat glands from under his arms. He reportedly did this for cosmetic reasons, to avoid sweat stains while filming. While it seemed harmless at the time, it may have affected his ability to regulate body temperature, especially in Hong Kong's hot and humid climate. Combined with his constant training, this put added pressure on his health. Bruce was at the peak of fame, but the strain on his body and mind was growing, and soon scandal would strike in a way no one expected. Mistress or martyr? On July 20th, 1973, Bruce Lee's life came to a sudden and shocking end. That day, he had plans to meet with actress Betty Ting Pei and producer Raymond Chow to discuss the script for his new film, Game of Death. The meeting was held at Betty's apartment in Hong Kong, and according to accounts, everything seemed normal at first. Bruce was relaxed and in good spirits, focused on work. At some point in the afternoon, however, he began to complain of a headache. Betty, trying to help, gave him a tablet of Equagesic, a painkiller that combined aspirin with a tranquilizer. After taking the pill, Bruce said he wanted to rest and lay down in Betty's bedroom. Hours passed, but he never woke up. When medical help was called, it was too late. Bruce Lee was pronounced dead at just 32 years old. The shock of his death was made even greater by the circumstances. One of the fittest and most disciplined men in the world had suddenly collapsed without warning. But what captured immediate public attention was not only his death, but also where it happened. Bruce had died at the apartment of a young actress and not at home with his wife Linda Lee and their 2 children. As soon as this fact became public, the media seized on it, sparking a firestorm of rumors and controversy. Newspapers and magazines quickly framed the story as a scandal. Many reporters suggested Bruce had been having an affair with Betty Ting Pei. Headlines focused less on the medical explanation and more on the possibility of a hidden romance. The fact that Betty was a rising actress, attractive and younger, only fueled the speculation. For weeks and even years, the public talked less about the loss of a global superstar and more about the mystery of why he was in Betty's apartment. The scandal had lasting consequences for Betty herself. She was branded as Bruce's mistress and became a target of public anger. Some people went as far as to suggest she played a role in his death, even though doctors clearly ruled that Bruce had died from brain swelling linked to a reaction to the painkiller. The official reports did not matter to the press or to many fans who felt betrayed by the story. Betty became the scapegoat, with her name tied to Bruce's passing in almost every news article that followed. According to Betty, she first met him in 1972 through Raymond Chow and even knew his wife Linda. She admitted they spent time together but denied any romantic involvement. In interviews, she described how painful it was to be judged and attacked for something she says never happened. But while the scandal centered on where Bruce died and who he was with, the larger mystery still remained. What actually killed him? The fatal puzzle. The official explanation for Bruce Lee's death in 1973 was that he died from cerebral edema, which means swelling of the brain. Doctors believed this swelling was triggered by a bad reaction to Equagesic, the painkiller he had taken at Betty Ting Pei's apartment. Equagesic contained aspirin and a tranquilizer, and the report suggested that Bruce's body reacted in a rare and fatal way. His death was ruled a tragic accident, the result of what was described as an allergic reaction. While this explanation closed the case officially, many people found it hard to accept that a young, healthy man in peak physical condition could be killed by something as simple as a pain pill. What made the story even stranger was that this was not the first time Bruce had collapsed. Just 2 months earlier, in May 1973, while working on the set of Enter the Dragon, he had suffered an almost identical episode. That day, Bruce complained of a headache and then collapsed. He was rushed to the hospital where doctors found that his brain had swelled. He recovered after treatment, but it was clear that his body was already showing signs of serious stress. No long-term follow-up or preventive measures seemed to have been taken, and the incident was later seen as a warning that had been overlooked. Over the years, the mystery deepened as new theories came forward. One early idea was that cannabis use might have played a role. Bruce was known to use cannabis to relax and ease pain. Some traces were found in his body during the autopsy, which fueled rumors. However, medical experts dismissed this theory. While cannabis can affect the brain, there is no solid evidence that it causes cerebral edema or sudden death in healthy adults. This theory eventually lost support among scientists, though it lingered in public discussions for years. In 2018, a new theory was introduced by Bruce Lee's biographer, Matthew Polly. He argued that Bruce might have died from heat stroke. The idea came from a surgery Bruce had undergone in 1972. When he had his underarm sweat glands removed to avoid sweat stains on camera. Without sweat glands, Bruce's body may have struggled to regulate heat. Combined with the hot and humid climate of Hong Kong, as well as Bruce's intense workout schedule, his body may have overheated. The symptoms he experienced, headache, dizziness, and brain swelling, matched what happens in cases of hyperthermia. This theory gained attention because it offered a clear and physical explanation for the events leading to his collapse. And soon, the story takes an even darker turn, as tragedy struck not just Bruce, but his family too. The tragic chain reaction. When looking at Bruce Lee's sudden death, many experts now agree that it was not the result of just one single cause. Instead, it was the outcome of a perfect storm of factors that came together at the wrong time. On their own, each issue might not have been fatal, but combined, they created a dangerous situation that even someone as strong as Bruce could not survive. The first warning sign had already appeared 2 months earlier in May 1973, when Bruce collapsed on the set of Enter the Dragon. He suffered from the same symptoms that would later take his life: headache, dizziness, and swelling of the brain. Although he recovered in the hospital, this event showed that something was already wrong. His body had revealed a weakness, but after he returned to work, there was little evidence that serious steps were taken to prevent it from happening again. This made him more vulnerable when the same problem returned in July. Another factor was the surgery Bruce had in 1972 to remove the sweat glands from under his arms. He had chosen this procedure for cosmetic reasons so he would not show sweat stains on camera. However, the ability to sweat is essential for cooling the body, especially in hot and humid conditions like those in Hong Kong. Without this natural cooling system, Bruce's body may have overheated more easily, especially when combined with his extreme training routines. This would have placed extra strain on his health and could have worsened the risk of brain swelling. His daily habits also played a role. Bruce was known to drink large amounts of fluids, including water, juice, and protein shakes, sometimes in quick succession. In 2022, researchers suggested this habit could have led to hyponatremia, a condition caused when the kidneys cannot handle the excess fluid. This imbalance causes sodium levels in the blood to drop, leading to swelling in the brain. On the day of his death, reports suggest Bruce had been drinking heavily, which may have created the final trigger. Finally, there was the equagesic pill he took at Betty Ting Pei's apartment. This painkiller contained a tranquilizer, and the official report said Bruce had a rare reaction to it. While the drug alone may not have killed him, it likely made the situation worse by further contributing to the swelling of his brain, which had already been pushed to its limit by the other factors. But the tragedy did not stop with Bruce. His family would face even more heartbreak in the years to come. The Lee curse. The sudden death of Bruce Lee in 1973 sent shockwaves around the world, but the deepest pain was felt by his family. His wife, Linda Lee Cadwell, was just 28 years old when she became a widow. Overnight, she had to raise their 2 young children, Brandon, who was 8, and Shannon, who was only 4. Along with her own grief, Linda faced the heavy task of protecting her children from the endless media coverage and speculation surrounding Bruce's death. Reporters followed every detail, often focusing on scandal rather than truth. Linda's focus became not only survival, but also shielding her family from a world that constantly reminded them of their loss. Despite these challenges, Linda remained committed to keeping Bruce's memory alive. She spoke publicly about his life, his work, and his philosophy, making sure that the world saw more than just the mystery of his death. Her strength allowed her children to grow up knowing their father through stories, writings, and films, even if he was no longer there to guide them. Tragedy struck the family again 2 decades later. Brandon Lee, Bruce's only son, followed in his father's footsteps. He trained in martial arts and pursued a career in acting. By the early 1990s, Brandon was beginning to make a name for himself in Hollywood. He appeared in films such as Showdown in Little Tokyo and Rapid Fire, showing not only his fighting skills but also his presence on screen. In 1993, he won the lead role in The Crow, a dark action film that many believed would launch him into stardom. But during filming on March 31, 1993, a tragic accident occurred. Brandon was shot with a prop gun that had been improperly prepared. What was supposed to be a safe stunt turned deadly. He was rushed to the hospital but did not survive. Brandon was only 28 years old. the same age his mother had been when Bruce died. The shocking similarity of their fates was almost too much for the family to bear. Brandon was buried beside his father in Seattle's Lakeview Cemetery, where fans still visit their graves to pay respects. The responsibility of carrying on the Lee legacy then fell to Bruce's daughter, Shannon Lee. Unlike her brother, she chose a different path at first, exploring both acting and music. Later, she shifted her focus toward preserving her father's philosophy and ensuring his ideas remained relevant for future generations. She became the head of the Bruce Lee Foundation, an organization that promotes Bruce's teachings on martial arts, self-growth, and personal expression. Through her work, Shannon has become the voice of her father's message, keeping it alive for people who continue to be inspired by him. The Lee family story is not only about fame but also about repeated heartbreak, and soon the focus returns to Bruce himself as science finally pieces together the truth behind his death. If you found this breakdown interesting, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more.